This is Ken Pyle, and we're at the Broadband Communities 2013 Summit, and we're looking at the symposium report from NC Broadband with James Patterson, who is heavily involved in the production of this this report. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
Well, the report was put together because I've always been having been a vice chancellor of a university, I've always been very concerned about having real facts and real research to back up what you're telling citizens at the local level or when you're arguing with the private sector or anyone else. And so NTIA, we wrote into our grant to NTIA when we did the first state broadband data application that we do this kind of report with top researchers, and they concurred, and so which surprised us. We thought they'd exit out, but they didn't. And so this was held last December in Washington in order to make sure it was done the most cost-effective way, because the people can fly into Washington cheaper than they can into any other city.
Okay.
So we spent the day with a wonderful day with people from all kinds of disciplines talking about what was important to be done in research. And the last time this was looked at was almost 14 years ago by National Science Foundation. And so the report now was released yesterday. Actually, it has its official release, but I brought it here with me to make sure that a lot of our folks here got a chance to look at it. But Dr. Ed Fazer from the Urbana-Champaign University of Illinois, which is going to be a GigU university, and also Bill Lair from MIT research professor, and John Hargan, who is at the Joint Center for Political Studies as head of research in Washington, and myself, organized and planned the whole thing. And then it was quite an experience trying to corral all these researchers and other people very prominent in this field for the last 15, 20 years. And they're listed in the report. And basically what the report tells you is that more really documented research needs to be done on economic impact. That anecdotal studies are wonderful, but anecdotal studies don't always, you find out when you dig into them, they aren't based on fact. And the other issue is that when you try to sell broadband and how important it is, if you sell it on anecdotal evidence and it's not factually based, then you lose the argument when they find the first chink in the armor. I mean, when they find that problem. And so there are findings. We did it so that it was there's a bibliography going back only to about 2004 in the back, and it's going to be online at NC Broadband as a dynamic bibliography of real research studies, because we couldn't find them when we started looking. There was nowhere there was anything like that, and so that will be continued at the back online there. And then we also have recordings of the whole day, and that can go online as well, so people could really listen to what these people were saying. And then the other thing is that we did surveys with people in advance about what they thought, and so there were over 1,500 researchers who belonged to an international research group, and that was very interesting. So that is not in the document, and it will be online. So you'll be able to go to NC Broadband and find a lot more information after May 1. But we're excited about this because one of the things that I was surprised at the researchers is that they talk about they need to do more soft side research about what are the outcomes that come from broadband that are off budget or off the market or you didn't think would happen in a community. And how does the impact of planning for broadband and collaborating at the local level, what kind of impacts are there? That's never really researched.
Yeah, I guess that's like what we've seen with the Google. 1,100 communities applied and only one made it, but a lot of these other communities have now done something about it. Right?
Well, and they've worked together and collaborated, and that's what's happened in North Carolina. In Greenlight, which is in Wilson, North Carolina, and that was a community, is a perfect example where that community talked to every provider, negotiated over 3 years, could never get an answer back of when they would, come and change everything, and finally decided that they would go forward themselves, and they're well ahead of their financial plan at this point. The same in their government, but we have fiber link over in Salisbury that did the same thing. And when the company said to them, "Oh, we're coming there," they said, the mayor said, "When?" "Well, we haven't decided yet." She said, "What day are you coming?" So they had their votes, and they in fact started, their fiber. And everywhere we've had fiber in the state, and nonprofits that have created, and we've really encouraged nonprofits to do this because they can stay outside the government sector and really stay away from the private sector. And in one county where they had 18% unemployment, and that county now has Facebook in there. It also has Google in there. And this is the Rutherford County in North Carolina. And the 7-mile fiber thing that we funded at the RIAA when it was that is now 130 miles going to schools and private businesses and hospitals. And it's just amazing the turnaround in that local community.
Yeah, you mentioned something, you moderated a panel just now, and you mentioned something about in North Carolina, all the cooperatives will have fiber to the home here shortly.
Well, we have always worked with the co-ops, and the co-ops are the quickest. And here's what they will tell you. They will say to you, if they look at a payback, it's over 50 years, to be the most cost-effective way to go out and change a technology that is 50-year payback. But when the Obama stimulus came through with the money that was available for broadband, they saw that their payback could be 20 years. And at that point, a private sector company would be 2 and 3 years max. At that point, they voted as a group to move ahead. So all of these co-ops are taking that risk and moving ahead. And so it's really, and also they're taking a risk right now in another way. Wilkes County, the co-op there, is the group that is looking at lower income families and working to see what the translation from Lifeline at the FTC program could be to Light Up, which we call Light Up, which is broadband. Okay. And so they agreed to be a research project in that. And they're moving ahead with that.
It's part of the Broadband Lifeline program.
It's being funded by FCC through the initiative we had at ENC and now NC Broadband. And hopefully we're finding lots of really tough things with that. You're going to really have to work with these folks, almost one-on-one, with their ability to learn to get online. And it also provides a help desk. It's a research project. We've never done anything there that wasn't research from the beginning, and then planned and implemented, and then researched at the end. So we can say, what do we learn from this? And the research is always at the end by a third party. So it's not us doing that research. So research has a real role to play as we move technologies and as they roll through everything.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. One of the things here, I ran into a gentleman who, private sector business owner, who is really frustrated by the lack of broadband in his community, and it means the difference between staying there or not. And he's in the early stages of starting a broadband network, working with the local city, and it would be fun to document that because come back a year from now, 2 years from now, what that'll evolve to. And I think that's part of the challenge too, is those early documentation, right?
The actual documentation of what we call the collaborative. Well, you would develop in advance an evaluation plan, and you would and work with the community, and then follow that as what you would do.
Yeah, I meant how did they do that particular fiber build, right? I mean,
it's building. You learn a lot building a fiber build. Yeah. We did the first integrated public switch broadband fiber network in the world in North Carolina, and that was in '91. And we learned a lot. What we did was with all the companies. We worked with all the companies except Time Warner cable companies weren't involved. And they learned a lot. And when they got through, I said to them, okay, you're telling us that the government's getting a lot of this stuff free. I said, think of the sweat equity the government's putting into what you're doing. And now you have, at Bell South at the time, well ahead of the rest of the companies in the United States on deploying fiber, and what you have to do it, what you have to do with the communities, what you have to do in terms of your own billing procedures. There were real problems with billing across fiber. And so it's I think early adopter states are very important to the private sector, and we had a lot of relationships with the private sector that were wonderful. And now what you see, where the private sector elects not to go into certain areas because it's not in their supposedly financial model, your problem you have is that they're losing a lot of the very supporters that they had before, who were willing to be partners with them in brave new worlds of fiber. And there will be other iterations out there. Looking at the whole field of education, where I do a lot of work in educational technology and learning, the whole field of avatars in education, of how that's going to roll through, and the whole field of working with kids. Kids learn totally differently now.
Sure.
They're, I say they're very spatial. Video, and the zero generation isn't going to stick with a private sector company that can't meet their demands. And within 5 years, I would predict to you, that might be fast, but I would predict to you that you'll be watching television straight on the internet, not through cable.
Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting prediction. We'll come back here in 5 years.
What happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Again?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jane.